I'm holding a 2022 Bear Alaskan. I bought it a few months ago, put everything together. It took me a while to make a decision on this, but I follow a very specific process that takes me from a bare bones bow to a complete ready to hunt, walk out the door package. So today we're going to talk about my 5-step process for beginners, or even those of you who've bought a couple bows, to be able to make the right decision on a bow every time, so that you know that when you're going out the door, whether it's for target shooting or hunting, that you made the right decision. Hey, I'm Mike, the Everyday Bow Hunter, and if you like this video, please make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell. We'd love to have you back for more videos. So let's jump into things. So today we're going to talk about how to buy a bow for beginners, for those of you that really don't want to dig into the specifics of every little nuance of a bow, but you want to be able to make sure that you walk out into the woods or onto the target range, that 3D shoot, whatever, with the right bow for you. So we're talking specifically about compound bows, and we're talking about a specific 5-step process going to help you make the right decision every time. So let's get into it. All right, the first step in the process, step number 1, is identifying your draw length. Now, every bow out there has a draw length range, whether it's between 25.5 inches up to 30 inches or up to 32 inches, or for teens and youth bows, they have smaller ranges down in the teens even. So with that in mind, when you're going to select a bow, knowing what your draw length is extremely important to know if you fit in the range for that specific bow. Another reason why you need to know your draw length is because if you're going out and buying a bow, every bow has a rated IBO speed, or an ATA speed. Those speeds in feet per second could be, say 335 feet per second, which this bow next to me has, or it could have 305, or it could be lower than that, down 250. It could be up range all the way up to 350, 360 feet per second, depending on the bow. So that changes the instant you change the draw length on the bow. So when you modify it to yourself, now if you're shooting, if you're shooting a 30-inch draw length and that bow is maxed at 30 inches and you're shooting the maximum draw weight on it, which we'll get into in a minute, now you might be maxing out that bow and you might be able to eke out near the IBO speed, but very rarely are you going to shoot the actual speed off that bow, because as soon as you put weight on this bow, as soon as you put different arrows in it, it's going to change that radically. So knowing that right off the bat is important. And that's why if you have a shorter draw length, I tend to push myself to higher IBO speed bows. Whereas if you have a really long draw length, then you don't have to worry about that much. You can buy a lower IBO speed bow, because what's going to happen is you're going to be right near that max when you're shooting your arrows, because you're maxing out the bow, or capable of maxing out the bow, I should say, because your draw weight's going to factor into that as well. So a couple other things that factor in here is the type of release that you're going to shoot. So you have finger style releases, and you have mechanical, what I call trigger style releases, and I'll show you that here in a second. But first off, how do you get your draw length? It's a very simple process. Now, understanding, you go from the tip of your middle finger on each hand, and you get against the wall and you stretch your arms out. Now, don't get crazy and really stretch yourself out hard. Don't do that. Just relax, take it back, and have your spouse, friend, whatever, measure you from fingertip to fingertip across your body. And what that's going to do is going to allow you to then divide that measurement in inches by 2.5. Now, you don't have to remember that. All you have to do is go down in the description here, and I have a link there to our draw length calculator, and you go in there, just put in your measurement. It's going to do all the calculation for you, and it's also going to give you some directions about the impact of draw length and what it impacts your ability to buy your bow. So that's a very important part. Now, the next thing with draw length is, so I did that. My personal draw length, when I do that measurement, it comes out to 27.2. Now, because of that, we're going to round down to 27. You never want to round up. All right, you want to have flexibility. Now, when you get different bows, you can find is that your draw length, you might say, hey, I measure myself perfectly. It's 27 inches. But when I go and I draw the bow, it's off. It can be off by a ½ inch. Every single bow is different. So understand that you're going to have to do some work, either way when you get in there and you get yourself behind that bow. Another factor, like I just said, the type of release you shoot is going to make a difference. So if you're just starting out and you have no real advanced concept of shooting, if you haven't shot a bow before or you're just getting started, I would recommend a mechanical release, because a mechanical release is going to let you, let me put this on here, is going to let you basically shoot the bow like you're shooting a trigger on a gun, right? You're not going to shoot like this, but you're going to shoot sideways. And because of that, that is going to keep your draw length pretty much at the max of what you've measured when you did your calculations. Now, if you get into a more advanced thumb style release, or I call it a finger release, now what you're going to be able to do then is adjust your draw length down even farther. It's going to actually lessen your draw length down about a ½ inch. So when you're going in, you're doing these calculations, it's important to take that into consideration as well. And if you're, wherever you're buying your bow, if you're buying your bow online and you're not talking to a shop owner or going to an archery store, then you don't have a person to talk to about this. So it's important to know this right off the bat. Next thing is, when you take a look, you can see the impact this has. So when I draw my bow, and I have that back, my draw length should be that 27 inches, but with this style release on here, that 26 inches should be on my bow now. Now because of that, you can see why that matters. I have this bow maxed out, and that draw length is set. Now if that's off any, that could be too far forward, it could be too far back, and now I have a problem. So that's why it's important to know that draw length. Okay, now step two. Step two is knowing your draw weight. Now for everybody out there, draw weight is going to be different. And if you haven't shot a bow, the shock of pulling that bowstring back the first time with a really heavy draw weight can be really shocking. And if you're not used to it, you can be a really strong person, but if you're not used to it, it can be an issue. One of the things that you never want to do is dry fire a bow, meaning you don't want to fire it without an arrow in there. It can have impact on your cams here and take that string right off and blow the string right off the bow, so and cause other damages. So that's why it's important to start at a lower draw weight initially and test some cheaper arrows just to see where your draw weight is. Work yourself up, into a weight after you shoot on the range a little bit. Get a feel for the bow. Get a feel for what your draw weight is. Now you should be able to go out and shoot on the range a good 30 arrows to zero in your bow and stuff, or just do like a 3D shoot can be, 50, 60 arrows, depending on the 3D shoot if you're doing a shoot like that. But if you're zeroing in a new sight, you're working in a new rest and putting all this stuff together on a new bow, when you're first shooting it, it's important to not be wearing yourself out. It's important to work on your mechanics and get those down before you get into, trying to really increase the poundage of your bow. So when you're talking about teens and stuff like that, maybe smaller featured people, you're talking in the 30, 40 pound range. But you're talking about some of your more adult bows, you're going to see ranges that go from a lot of times from 45 to 60 pounds, and then possibly 55 or 60 pounds to 70 pounds. Some bows out there push up to 80 pounds, but those are not the norm. You're usually more in the range of that 60 to 70 pound range when you're talking about an adult bow. And if you're not super strong or really lack confidence and haven't shot a lot, I would start down in the 50s for an adult male before jumping into if you're an adult female, you might want to start down in the lower 50s or maybe in that 45 pound range, just to get a feel first. Because if you come up on the bow and the first thing you go to pull it and you can't get it off the cams like this, you can't get that string back, automatically that draw weight is way too high for you, because you really have to use your back and do a good draw like this. And then the let off on the bow, which is another feature of bows, right here, this bow has an 80% let off, which means the weight back here is 80% of that total draw weight. So it's taking that weight off through those cams on the bow. And what that allows me to do is to sit back here and stay on my target for a while. But getting yourself back there is one thing. And like I said, you don't want to dry fire the bow. So you want to be able to let it down easy when you're done if you don't fire. So that's why draw weight and understanding draw weight is important as well. And like I said, the same thing with the draw length. Every bow has a rated draw weight to it. So when you're talking about bows that have that a draw length, like I said before, in that 25.5 or 25 or 26 or even 27 to 30 to 32 range for draw length, you're probably going to see ranges that go from 55 to 70 pounds. And a lot of times, like I said, you'll see that there's some manufacturers will have two different versions of their bow. So they'll go like the Bear did with this bow. They went 45 to 60 pounds, and then they went 55 to 70 pounds. This particular bow is currently set at 65 pounds. And I'm 5'8". My draw length, like I said, is 27 inches. But because I shoot this finger style caliper thumb release, it's 26.5 inches. Now my bow is rated at 335 feet per second IBO speed. But when you take into consideration all those other factors I just talked about, the actual draw weight and the draw length that I just talked about, and you put that into the calculator, which you can use the calculator down in the description below, you can see what the actual speed of your bow is after you take all those things into consideration, and the different weight that you put on, and the arrows you shoot as well. All these things factor in to the speed of your bow. And what you're going to also have to think about with that is, hey, you know, why am I buying it? So let's jump into that. That brings us to step 3 in the process. All right, step 3 is, why are you buying it? Are you buying this bow for target shooting and fun, 3D shoots? Are you buying it for hunting? What kind of hunting? So all these things factor in. So if you're buying it for target shooting, then your arrows that you're shooting probably aren't going to have to be really heavy. So if your arrows aren't very heavy, then you're going to be able to shoot really fast off your bow. The heavier your arrow, the slower the speed of the bow, but the more penetration you get. So when you're talking about a hunting arrow tends to be heavier, where a target arrow tends to be lighter because it can fly flatter than to your target, and you don't have to make as many sight adjustments, if that makes sense. So understanding why you're buying the bow really can make a difference in the choice of the bow you're buying. Plus, there are specific target compound bows. This bow, as I said, the Bear Alaskan that I have here, is a hunting bow. And when you go out and buy a hunting compound bow, it really makes a difference in what features you're getting off that bow as well. Okay, that brings us into step 4 of the process. The next step is budget, right? You can buy a bow with everything on it, a ready to hunt bow for $300. Now, it doesn't mean you should. So you have to look at the quality of the bow, brand recognition, reviews, all these things matter. So take some time and do your research and understand what your budget is and what, like I said, what you want to accomplish. If you're really not, sure if you're an archery hunter and you just want to try it out, or you're just really, getting into target shooting, you can really get a good bow with everything on it for a cheap price, $300, a Bear Cruiser species, and Elite has some good low budget bows. When I bought this Bear Alaskan bow, for example, I was not looking to break the bank because I knew that some of the features that I want aren't necessarily in the bow, but because of my short draw length, I knew that I wanted to have a bow that had a good IBO speed. So I wanted a higher IBO speed, which I went with the 335 feet per second on this bow, because I knew once I added my draw length in and draw weight, it was going to factor in to the overall speed of the bow, and I wanted to have a little bit more push when I'm hunting. So with that in mind, I picked this bow out because it had that speed, and it also has a 32-inch ATA. ATA meaning from axle to axle on the bow, from here to here. That axle to axle length. I didn't want to go above 32 inches. I want to have something I can carry into the tree and not, while I'd like a smaller bow, sometimes when you get a smaller 30-inch bow like this one here, 30-inch axle to axle bow, what happens is as you lose on speed. So there are ones out there that are 30 inches and smaller in heights that have a high IBO speed. Usually that means that the price goes up as well. So understand that pricing could be affected by, how much smaller the bow is. And if you want a small bow for hunting to be able to carry it through the woods and you're going through some really thick stuff, but you want a higher IBO speed, you're going to pay a higher premium price. So understand that off the bat. The next thing is, like I said, with this bow, one of the reasons why I wanted to go with a cheaper bow, and this bow is $499, maybe up to $529, depending on the paint job, like I was talking about. The other things that go on here that you have to have for every bow is your bow sight right here. Right, I have a single pin Trophy Ridge bow sight on here, and then I have a QAD HDX drop away rest as well on the sight. These are not cheap. Now, I also put a stabilizer on here, and my Trophy Ridge stabilizer here wasn't too bad. I think it was about $34. So, but putting all these on there is going to add up. So where I went starting off with a $500 bow, I now have about $800 into this bow. So now with $800 into this bow, did I also select my release? And a release can also cost you anywhere from $40. This particular finger release here that I use, it's about $90, maybe $100, depending on the model. So all those things have to be taken into account. Even more so, you then have your arrows and your quiver. If you're target shooting, like I said, your arrows could still be expensive. It depends. You can get a pack of 6 arrows for as low as $40, but it doesn't mean they're going to be great arrows. Most of the arrows I shoot, a 6-pack of arrows, I'm looking at about $90. The ones that I'm shooting right now were about that for 6. But I have a higher 605 grain setup that I'm shooting. I did get some Axis 5mm arrows that are great for hunting, that were about, I want to say about $70, $80 for 6. So that's about a decent range for 6 arrows. Once you get cheaper than that and you go down, the quality of your arrows really diminishes, and that's going to affect the overall shootability of your bow. So while your bow is extremely important, the arrows you shoot out of it are extremely important too, but you have to take into account that that's money that you're putting in there as well. And if you're mounting the quiver to the bow, like this one has a easy disconnect, as you see, I don't have the arrows on here right now. That quick disconnect allows me to take it off and hang that quiver in the tree. And with those features like that, that's about another $40 for the quiver. So you put all that together, you can see where the prices come up, and you have to adjust your budget. So that's why step 4 of the process is very important. Before you even walk out the door or get online and start shopping, you need to know what your budget is, and do you have all these items. Now I have all this down in the description. You can go down there and take every one of those items into account as you're budgeting out, and then see other options out there for you that might be perfect for you and what you're trying to accomplish. In addition, if you're just target shooting, then you probably just have field points or practice points on the tips of your arrows. They're not going to cost you very much. You might be able to get 5 or even 10 of them for $10. So that's not a big deal. When you're talking about, you're hunting broadheads now, most hunting broadheads are going to cost you around $40 for 3 anymore. And if you're getting really fancy, they can get even more expensive. And then putting 6 on there, you're talking about adding another $40 or so. So it could be $80 if you want to outfit every single one of your arrows with a broadhead. And most likely you want to do that because you want to make sure you have shootability in all of your arrows. So with that in mind, that you can see where you're adding on to that, and that where that budget's climbing even still by the time you're ready to walk out the door and start hunting or target shooting. All right, so let's get into step 5 of the process. Step 5 is a little bit different because now you're taking into account the longevity and the work that you're going to get done on the bow, because every single bow is going to need tuned. You're going to need help with assistance with getting your stuff set up. And then when stuff goes wrong, you need a place you need to take it. And that's really important for beginners or even seasoned vets who really don't want to go and learn how to do all the stuff that goes into the maintenance of this. So when you're talking about all these different parts and features of these bows, there's a lot of different things to learn, and there's a lot of components to them, and understanding what those components are is important. But becoming an expert with working on cams, bowstrings, putting on a knock loop here where you load the arrows and you hook your release up, all the different little silencing features you can, your wrist strap, all the things that go into setting up a bow and maintaining a bow and understanding when to replace your string and how to have somebody replace your string. All those things are critically important when you buy a bow. So when you're going in to buy a specific brand, it's important to know that your local archery shop or dealer or whoever you can take it to, I don't care if you're going to Cabela's, a Bass Pro Shop, Field Stream, Gander Mountain, or if you're going to your local archery pro, and being able to walk in there and hand them your bow and have them adjust your draw length, adjust your draw weight for you, put new sights on, make sure your rest is aligned perfectly, and make sure your bow's tuned and ready to knock that first arrow on it. If you don't have that, it's critically important that you find somebody that can do it for you. Every shop, whether it's Cabela's, whether it's your local archery pro, every one of them have specific brands that they work on. So it's important to know what they work on before you pull the trigger on that bow and then find that you bought something so obscure that you no longer have somebody that can help you with it. So now here I am, I have a bow, I need to get it set up, but I can't get it set up because I need specific modules to adjust my draw length. Or I need somebody with a special press to use on it, a bow press, specific bow press to work on my bow. Now, if you go to a dealer, say, for example, they have Matthews, they have Hoyt, they have Bear, like I have this Bear, or they'll work on them. It's very simple to walk in and say, hey, what bows do you work on? A lot of times guys will say all, but that's not necessarily true. It's good to look on the racks, see what bows they have there, and maybe even talk to some other people and say, hey, what bow do you have? You get worked on here a lot? That can really help you make a difference. And I know it's really hard to walk into an archer shop as a beginner and admit you're a beginner. But guess what? These guys are used to it. They do it all the time. It's something they're very used to. But they also can take you down a road that you don't want to go and make you spend a lot more money if you don't know what you're talking about. But if you followed and looked at the 5 steps in here, it's going to really help you make a decision. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Went over a lot. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I would love to hear them. We also have a complete How to Buy Your Bow blog post. We have a complete breakdown of all the components of a bow. And there you can see all our diagrams and see what the components of the bow are, so you understand all the terminology before you walk out, whether it's, like I said, whether you're buying a bow online or you're buying it at your local archery shop, Cabela's, Bass Pro, whatever, that you walk in armed with the knowledge that we've given you here today, and then you can make a much more informed decision and buy a bow that's going to work for you and what you want to do. So outside of that, there are so many different bows out there that you know, kind of look neat and stuff. Don't buy a bow because it looks neat first, right? Buy a bow because you think it looks cool after it's met all these other pieces of the puzzle that we just talked about. All right, so please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time.